This video is brought to you by Charco Design and Build.
And secondly,
Hi everybody, George Chamberlain here, executive editor at the Daily Transcript, and on this the 4th of April we just finished off another roundtable. A lot of enthusiasm because we were talking about real estate, residential and commercial, and boy, what a difference a couple of years makes. The attitude around the table much different. One of the people who joined us is Marty Conrad. Marty's a senior vice president with Coldwell Banker Residential here in San Diego County. He does work up in Riverside County as well. Marty, thanks for being part of the program.
my pleasure, George. Thank you.
All right, man, we've got a heck of a turnaround here. We've got a marketplace that is so dramatically different from where we were a couple of years ago. Explain what's going on out there now.
You know, George, we were talking earlier. I wish I could explain it. It was back in November. We were sitting up in your conference room, and we all knew that this market was going to break at some point. We knew it. We could feel it. We just didn't know what would set it off. And we also knew we wouldn't see it coming. Mm-hmm. That was November. This is now, it feels like 2005 all over again. Buyer, and in some ways not so good.
Yeah.
Buyers are having to really scramble to get a piece of property. They're in some cases writing offers on, I don't know, Lord knows how many properties before they're able to finally get one, if they get it. They're competing with anywhere from 10 to 20 to 30 other buyers, a lot of them cash buyers. So they're having to buy quickly, they're having to make decisions quickly. They're not able to really take their time and think things over. They've just got to move. And so I think in that respect, it's 2005, which isn't necessarily good, but yet, on the other hand, people are realizing that the market is still the market. We're not going off the table. We're not going to go down to levels that had been predicted where people are losing everything. People still want to live in San Diego, and there isn't enough property to house the people who want to live here.
Well, let's go with that, because that obviously is the nub of this whole thing, is the inventory of homes for sale. Unlike other places in this country, we could name them, but there are places here where inventories are massive, and you can get anything you want at practically zero, very, very low prices. When it's the first thing you learn in Economics 101, Marty, supply demand.
Right, absolutely. And where we're seeing, what's interesting since November, and when we last talked, properties that were at or below, say, $600,000, you really, even back then, having trouble finding them. Anything under $500,000, same thing, multiple offers. People were really trying to get in at either entry level, or investors saw the opportunity to buy property that with 30 to 40% down was penciling positive. Mm-hmm. And we didn't see that years ago. Yeah. And now what we're seeing is the mid-range for us, 600 to 900, 600,000, maybe up to $1 million. That's starting to open up, where those sellers are now starting to come back onto the market, and people are buying those properties. I heard Linda talk earlier today that, and I agree with her. She said what she sees is around 2 to 3 million is where it starts slowing down again. And I suppose that's true, but even at the upper price ranges, properties that are priced aggressively, they're still getting activity and they're still getting buyers. Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the cash buyer thing here, so let's talk a little bit about to the person out there that is looking to finally make that move to buy a home in here. And you've got 20, 30% down, and you're trying to compete now with the cash buyer. From your perspective as a person who works in the industry professionally with Coldwell Banker, how do you tell them, what do they need to do to be able to compete with the cash buyer?
First, they've got to be able to move quickly. And secondly, my counsel to them is, despite the fact that you don't have the luxury of time, you still need to be somewhat disciplined to keep yourself from making a poor decision. And in some cases, buyers are checking the block on the purchase contract that says we're waiving the condition on the appraisal. Oh. If they're able to do that, it's not something I'd recommend, but if they're able to do that and they're putting more than 30% down, that has meaning to a seller. If they're coming in with a 20% down payment and they're getting an 80% loan, it doesn't matter whether they waive that contingency, the lender is still going to look at that appraisal. And appraisals are still coming in short. And that's what happens in a market like we're in. Mm-hmm. But if they have good credit and they're going in with their offer, they've been pre-approved, they've got a good chance. It depends on the skill of their agent and depends on the skill of the agent representing the seller, and the seller willing to be fair. Yeah. You know, I learned a long time ago from a seller. It was years and years and years ago. A really good guy, and when he was selling a piece of property, he priced it very aggressively because he wanted to get a lot of activity. He wanted to get multiple offers. But when the offer came in, he still wanted to leave something on the table for the buyer. He wanted to give them something so that they felt that they got a good deal. Yeah. And I wish that we could get that in our transactions today. A seller may be able to demand whatever they want to demand right now, but they've still got a buyer who's moving into that property that during the course of the escrow, they may need something from that buyer. You know, or the buyer moves in, and the buyer, if he doesn't feel he's treated fairly, escrow closes, starts looking real critically at the property. And then the next thing you know, the seller's got a complaint. So if the buyers and the sellers together will negotiate in good faith and they'll each look at it as something that's got to work for both sides, then we're okay. When they don't, we've got a lot of friction.
Well put. That was well put. But it has turned in its own way so quickly into almost a seller's market.
Yes.
We're pretty much there. And there's a lot of people, Marty, I still talk to who don't buy into what's going on right now, that this is just a short-term phenomenon and that home prices, you know, for whatever reason, will likely come back down. You'd have to see, it would seem to me, you'd have to see several things happen. All of a sudden inventory, all of a sudden higher interest rates.
Yes, and I've been doing this since '77, and I've been hearing that same argument every time the market turns. This is the fifth one I think I've been through, and we're still at the beginning of that uptick.
That's right.
And I think if people just stay focused on the basics, if they're buying a piece of property for the right reasons, and if they're paying attention to the comparable sales and they're paying attention to local conditions, then they can make an informed decision. If I'm somebody looking at the market right now saying I'm going to wait until it comes back, first, I don't see it happening. And second, even if prices level, let's say they just stop going up at all.
Right.
Well, if interest rates go from, say, 3.5 to 4.5 or 5, what has that done to affordability? You know, so they've got to look at everything in the equation, and I'd say just follow their own counsel and don't pay too much attention to conventional wisdom, because it's usually not accurate down here.
Well, it's been a very interesting time, and one of the things I know that you mentioned, just one final thing to talk on here, is that how much harder the people in your industry have to work right now.
Yes.
Perhaps compared to any time since you've been in the industry, huh?
I think it's harder than it's ever been. Technically and legally, it's harder. There's so much that you've got to stay on top of. It's extremely difficult for people working with buyers who they're generally trying to find them the right place and get them in. And it's difficult because the property sells before they can get to it, or there are multiple offers before they can get their offer in. And it takes a lot of patience. And then once you're in escrow, if you have to get a loan, the attitude I counsel people, we're going through refinance right now, and I told my wife, honey, here's what you got to see the lender's point of view is, I know you're lying to me, you no good so-and-so, and I'm going to take your loan app, but I'm going to figure out where you're lying to me. And if I can't find the lie, then I'll make the loan. But I'm going to find the lie. And if I find it, I'm going to wait till day 29 at that 30-day escrow. If I can't, okay, we're all right. So it's almost to that level, and if we set the expectations, then everybody's okay.
Somebody said it's no longer a loan application, it's a loan investigation.
Oh, my goodness. It never ends.
That's right. That's right. Marty, always great to talk with you.
Oh,
Thanks
thank
for
you,
coming
George.
in.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it always.
You're always a gentleman.
Love your thoughts and where you're going. It was a good roundtable. Samantha Henry was the reporter in the room. She'll be writing the content for the publication and the website, so watch for that. Thanks for watching us.